Hello, today we are interviewing Dr. Samuel Gregg. He is the Director of Research at Acton Institute in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Hello, Sam. Welcome to Guatemala.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're going to be talking about crony capitalism. How would you define crony capitalism?
Crony capitalism, in very brief terms, is when free markets are replaced by what I call political markets. So the emphasis shifts away from focusing upon meeting consumer demand or creating new products and refining services that you think might meet consumer demand. Instead, the focus of business shifts much more towards the government, towards politics, towards the extraction of privileges, of protections, of subsidies, of all those things that, frankly, many business people would much rather do than compete in a free market economy. So crony capitalism, in that sense, shifts the emphasis away from the forces of mutual exchange and entrepreneurship and economic creativity, and much more towards the securing of favors from the government. It's not a new thing in history. It used to be called mercantilism. In fact, that's what Adam Smith calls it in his Wealth of Nations. But I would argue it's one of the most insidious threats to the free market today.
Okay. And what do you think causes it?
Partly, I think it's easier in many cases for business people to lobby governments for favors, for privileges. But secondly, also, when you have large governments and you have the state controlling large percentages of GDP, then the financial incentives to become a cronyist shift away from being involved in the marketplace and trying to meet consumer demand. And there's much more incentive to look towards government. So if one's trying to deal with the problem of crony capitalism, that involves, in a certain extent, shrinking the role of government in the economy.
You have written that crony capitalism has a negative effect both on the economic marketplace and the political marketplace. Can you explain a little bit?
Well, in the economic terms, it means that economies become less productive, less creative, and growth tends to slow down as well. And we all need growth if we're going to be having flourishing societies. Politically speaking, it can very easily translate into more or less outright corruption. Now, that doesn't mean that crony capitalism is always corrupt, but it does tend to lead the political sphere in that direction, because it's not just the businesses that have an incentive to be involved in crony capitalism, it's legislators and regulators and governments who also stand to gain from it, whether it's in terms of jobs after they finish their term in office, or whether it's just outright political support when it comes to election time.
And the big question is, what do we do about it?
Well, as I've already hinted, I think one way is to reduce the size of government, because that means that government and legislators and regulators have less to offer to people in the business place, people in the marketplace, entrepreneurs. They shift their attention away because incentives matter, and they see that more incentives lie in trying to meet consumer demand rather than trying to curry favor with politicians. But I also think it means businesses committing themselves to the free market and not to the process of engaging in political markets. So it's partly an economic transformation that's required. It's also a political transformation. But frankly, it's also a moral transformation. So that businesses know that even though they might be able to make more money in a political market, they know that this is not good for themselves in the long term or for the country as a whole.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.